Bully tries to drag new black student out of the class. What she did next shocked everyone. No one imagined that a silent girl walking into class could make the entire room feel like it had stopped breathing, until Donna Jones opened the door to room 4B during 4th period math. Register and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It was a scorching September afternoon, the air thick despite the hum of the ceiling air conditioner. Brookhaven High School, nestled in a northern Michigan suburb, had a student body that was nearly 98% white. And today, for the first time in years, the only black girl was walking down its hallway. Donna entered with an uncanny calm. She was 16, recently transferred from Southside Chicago, a place where street violence was no stranger, and her eyes looked like they had seen far too much of what should never be seen. Without a greeting, without even a glancing look around, Donna walked past each row of desks like she was crossing a battlefield without armor. Her posture was upright, steady, but her gaze was as cold and tempered as forged steel. A dark denim jacket rested loosely on her shoulders. Her braids were neatly tied back, and a heavy old backpack tapped softly against her hip with each step. The entire class turned to look, then quickly looked away, pretending to be immersed in their books. But every glance was furtive, uneasy. No one said a word, yet the atmosphere in the room thickened instantly, as if someone had opened a valve and filled the space with the heavy smoke of prejudice and silent defense. Donna chose a seat in the back, next to the window. She didn't look at anyone. It was the kind of spot that offered a wide view and a quick exit, the choice of someone who had often been forced into isolation. She opened her notebook, took out a pen, and began writing the first line like she had done it 1,000 times before. In the middle row, Paul Langston raised an eyebrow. He stood 6 feet 1 inch, broad-shouldered and muscular, already suspended 3 times. Once for punching a classmate, once for threatening a teacher, and most recently, for smashing someone's locker after they dared to sit in his seat. The moment he saw Donna walk past, his jaw clenched. The pencil in his hand snapped in half, as if his patience had shattered along with it. He didn't need to say anything. Everyone knew what was forming in his mind. Owen, Paul's desk mate, let out a quiet sigh. The blonde-haired boy, who trailed Paul like a shadow, leaned in and whispered, "Bro, not today." But Paul only tightened his fists, his knuckles cracking like unspoken warnings. At the front of the class, Ms. Porter, the math teacher, continued her lesson on mixed fractions. Her hand trembled slightly as she wrote on the board. 3 1/4 plus 2 2/3 equals what? But no one was paying attention. She knew it. Everyone knew it. Eyes darted toward the back of the room. Even her voice seemed stuck in her throat, heavy, fragmented. And in the midst of that waiting silence, Donna remained unchanged. She wrote slowly, each curve of her handwriting steady and exact, as if all the stairs boring into her back were invisible, as if she knew exactly what was coming, and had already made peace with it. Outside, a breeze swept through the hallway, rustling dry leaves across the floor. Inside, another kind of storm was about to begin. But Donna Jones wasn't the kind of girl who ran from storms. She was the kind who walked straight into them. Less than a minute after Donna took her seat, a screech of metal shattered the tension-strung silence. It was the sound of a chair being shoved violently across the cold, tiled floor. Paul Langston stood up like a storm unchained. He didn't need a reason, just an opportunity. And the new girl, the one who didn't look like anyone else here, was the defiant wind he was ready to crush. "You don't belong here," his voice thundered, heavy like a hammer slamming into brick walls, making a nearby girl drop her pen in shock. The entire class held its breath. Ms. Porter turned around, marker still in hand mid-sentence. "Paul, sit down right now." Her voice was taut as a wire, but not strong enough to stop what was about to ignite. Donna remained seated. She didn't flinch, didn't avoid him. She simply looked up, eyes deep and dark, calm as a lake moments before the storm breaks. "Sit down, Paul," she said, slowly, firmly, each word like a hammer striking consciousness. There was no fear in her voice, only a command from someone who didn't need to shout to be heard. Paul sneered, provoked by her very composure. "You think you're better than us?" he growled. No one laughed. Even Owen, who usually egged Paul on in every disruption, lowered his head quietly, inching his chair away. This wasn't mischief anymore. This was malice. Paul charged. Just a few steps, but the classroom floor echoed like war drums. Ms. Porter tried to step between them, arms outstretched. "Paul, that's enough!" But he shoved her aside like a door. Her shoulder twisted, stumbling against the whiteboard. Paul's footsteps thundered closer to Donna's desk. "You think you're better than us?" he hissed through clenched teeth. Without waiting for an answer, he kicked the leg of her desk hard, sending Donna's fountain pen flying to the floor, spinning into the center of the room. The silence exploded. Everyone braced for something awful. A girl covered her mouth, eyes wide. Another clutched her backpack strap, ready to flee. But not Donna. She sat still, her hands resting lightly on her thighs. Her eyes never left Paul, and something in that gaze made him pause for just a second, like he was being seen through. But then the familiar rage surged back. "Ghetto girl, say something!" he screamed, voice like nails on steel. He grabbed her arm, yanking hard, trying to drag her from the chair. The chair screeched as it slid back. Donna stood, yanked forward, but perfectly balanced. In that moment, the classroom froze. A single breath before the storm. Paul raised his fist. He wasn't going to speak again. His knuckles curled, eyes bloodshot, lips clenched. A punch coming fast. And then, Donna shifted, swift as a reflex long trained. The punch sliced through air past her face, missing entirely, leaving only a whistling trail of fury. But before he could react, she was already moving. With seamless precision, she grabbed his wrist, pivoted behind him, and twisted gently in the opposite direction of his elbow. Just enough force to break his momentum. Then, with a calculated pull, she turned his entire body around its axis, and thud! He collapsed to the classroom floor. Silence. Only the sound of heavy breathing and the subtle creak of shifting chairs. Paul lay there, face pressed to the cold tile, eyes wide in disbelief. Donna stood, unmoved. She didn't win with strength. She won with control. And for the first time, the class realized they had just witnessed something far beyond a schoolyard fight. They had witnessed a storm disarmed by intellect and dignity. And Donna, the girl who was grabbed, shouted at, pushed into a corner, had stood up without needing to shout back. Paul Langston's footsteps slammed against the classroom floor, each step like a warning drumbeat. As he charged forward and raised his fist, the entire class held its breath. No one truly believed he would hit her. No one thought Donna would dare to fight back. But no one could have predicted what was about to happen. Paul's punch was aimed straight at Donna's face, a brutal swing, completely unrestrained, carrying every ounce of bias and rage he'd harbored. But Donna was ready. In a flash, she leaned aside and grabbed his wrist, quick, precise, as if it had been rehearsed 100 times before. No one saw clearly what happened next. They only saw Paul's body spin midair, followed by a dull, thunderous thud as his entire frame crashed onto the tiled floor. The sound reverberated, snapping every pair of eyes in the classroom wide open. He lay there, confused, unmoving, as though taken down by a force he couldn't comprehend. For the next 3 seconds, no one spoke, no one breathed, no one dared to move. Donna quietly stepped back, picked up her chair, and slid it back into place with both hands. She sat down, closed her worn notebook, opened a new page, pulled out her pen, and began taking notes on fractions again, as if nothing had happened. This wasn't the behavior of someone showing off strength. It was the poise of someone who had learned to protect herself, but never allowed herself to become a threat. "Dude, she just took him down," a student near the front whispered, his voice dazed. Owen, Paul's closest friend, could only gape in disbelief. No one in that room had ever imagined the day Paul would be taken down, especially not by someone he thought was the weakest. And then, applause. One clap, then two, then a flurry. Like a sudden summer rain pounding on a tin roof, the clapping spread from the center rows to the back of the room. A few students stood up. No one was celebrating violence, but everyone could feel that something deeply unjust had just been undone. For the first time, the class didn't look at Donna with suspicion or pity. They looked at her like someone who had torn down an invisible line too many had quietly accepted. Ms. Porter reached for the classroom phone, her hand trembling slightly. "I need security to room 2C. Right now." Her voice shook but was firm, not because she was afraid, but because she had just witnessed something unprecedented in 12 years of teaching. A student who didn't use fists to attack, but used skill to defend, and dignity to restore order to the very classroom she taught in. 2 minutes later, 2 security officers walked in. The room fell completely silent, their footsteps loud in the weighty stillness. They saw Paul still on the floor, and Donna still quietly writing, as if this was merely another life skills exam. "What happened here?" one of them asked. But before anyone could respond, Ms. Porter stepped forward and pointed directly at Paul. "Take him. This student attacked another in front of the entire class." Paul shouted, "She hit me! I'm hurt. She doesn't belong here." But this time, no one defended him. Not a single voice rose in support. Even Owen, his loyal companion in every cruel prank, turned away. A student from the back murmured, "That wasn't a fight. That was self-defense, and a lesson he's needed for a long time." When the door closed behind Paul, the air in the classroom felt 10 tons lighter. Donna still didn't look up, but the stares from every direction had shifted. No more bias, no more hesitation. Only a quiet respect now spreading through the room, a respect she never asked for, but had earned entirely on her own. The door to room 2C swung open with a sharp, decisive sound. 2 school security officers, Mr. Jenkins and Ms. Ramos, stepped in with expressionless faces, their leather shoes echoing like the drums announcing the end of an old order. Their eyes scanned the room quickly. One glance was enough to tell them this was no ordinary schoolyard scuffle. On the floor, Paul Langston lay face down, his elbow slightly bloodied, eyes wide with a mix of shock and shame. In the back corner of the room, Donna sat calmly, her hands resting on her notebook, gaze steady, neither evasive nor remorseful, only the quiet stillness of someone long acquainted with storms. Ms. Porter didn't wait for a question. She stepped forward, her voice clear and sharp. "That student, Paul Langston, attacked a female classmate in the middle of the lesson. Everyone here witnessed it. I demand he be escorted to the principal's office immediately." Paul staggered to his feet, voice brimming with rage and desperation. "She hit me! She's violent. She should be expelled." But this time, silence didn't follow. A student from the 3rd row stood up. "No!" He threw the first punch. Another added, "Donna only defended herself." And then, like a wave rolling through the room, the entire class raised their voices, something unheard of in a classroom that usually tiptoed around trouble. "She didn't do anything wrong." Even Owen, Paul's closest friend, who usually joined him in mocking others, looked straight at the officers and said, I sat right next to them. Paul started it. Mr. Jenkins approached, took Paul by the arm, and shook his head slightly but firmly. Let's go. Paul resisted, shouting, She's not like us. She doesn't belong here. But this time his accusation fell into a void. No one echoed him, not a single nod, not a single sympathetic glance. And that was the moment Paul Langston stopped being someone feared and became someone pitied. The door closed behind him with a soft thud, like the closing of a dark chapter. The atmosphere in the classroom shifted noticeably. The suspicious glances that used to trail Donna as she walked by, gone. The hushed whispers behind her back, vanished. A girl who once avoided eye contact with Donna now turned and gave her a gentle smile. A boy nearby slid a small folded note toward her. It held only 3 words written in blue ink. You were amazing. Donna didn't respond. She knew those nods and sudden kindnesses weren't lasting recognition. They were the result of a moment when the truth could no longer be ignored. Nothing more. But she wasn't cold either. Her eyes no longer held distance or defense, only calm, quiet, pride. Ms. Porter, after the room settled, resumed the lesson. But this time, there was something different in her voice. It wasn't dry anymore. Each word came a little softer, a little slower, as if the whole class was breathing in a new rhythm. When the final bell rang, no one rushed to their feet. Everyone turned to look at Donna, not with judgment, but with quiet gratitude. Something in her action had opened the door for many things, for silent courage, for truth to be spoken, for choosing what's right in a world where silence often wins. And Donna, as usual, packed up her notebook, stood up, slung her backpack over her shoulder, and left the classroom without saying a word. But this time, she walked out not just with firm steps, but with dozens of eyes following her, filled with respect. No pity, no fear. Only one emotion was clear: reverence. That afternoon, the late sunlight slanted through the windows lining the administrative hallway of Brookhaven High, casting patchy beams across the cold tile floor. Donna's footsteps echoed steadily as she approached the frosted glass door of the principal's office. The small nameplate outside read, Principal Gerald Green, a name not unfamiliar, but one that had never felt welcoming to a student like her. She knocked twice, lightly. Come in, a male voice replied, deep and weary. Inside, Principal Green, a white man in his late 50s, with graying hair and thick glasses, sat behind a large wooden desk, his hands resting on an already open folder. He looked up at her. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. It was a measured gaze, like a judge assessing a witness in a closed courtroom. He gestured for Donna to take the seat across from him, a dark gray leather chair with worn armrests, smoothed over by countless students before her. Are you all right? He asked, his tone not quite warm, but not cold either. Just honest. Donna nodded and answered softly. Yes, sir. I'm all right. Principal Green flipped through a few sheets of paper, then paused at a still image from the classroom camera footage. Paul Langston, his arm raised, his face twisted in rage, stood in front of Donna, who remained seated and still, a piece of undeniable evidence. I've watched the video, he said, voice even, like someone accustomed to sorting out chaos. The part before, the part after. There's nothing to suggest you provoked or initiated anything. Donna said nothing. Her dark brown eyes met his, steady and unmoving. Not defensive, not pleading, just firm, like someone who knew herself better than anyone else in that building. I'd like to know, he hesitated. Where did you learn to react like that? That dodge, the wrist control, the takedown. It was pretty professional. Donna allowed herself a faint smile, for the first time during the meeting. It wasn't prideful or smug, just the plain truth being spoken aloud. My father's a Marine. He's taught me self-defense since I was 8. Just for protection. Never to hurt anyone. Principal Green nodded slowly. He didn't speak for a few moments. Then he exhaled gently, like setting down a burden he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. I see. After a pause, he turned his computer screen toward her and hit play. It was the wide-angle security footage of the classroom. Donna saw herself entering the room, the collective eyes of the class turning. Paul sitting motionless for a few seconds, before exploding like a fuse igniting. She saw Ms. Porter, Owen, and the rest of the class, all aligning with the truth. My conclusion, he said clearly, is that you violated no rules, and you won't face any disciplinary action. On the contrary, Paul Langston is being suspended effective immediately. We've already contacted his parents. Silence filled the office. No one said anything more. But in that silence, a strange feeling crept into Donna's chest. Not satisfaction, not triumph. It was a rare kind of relief. For the first time, someone in authority didn't question her skin color, her background, or why she was even here. For the first time, someone looked at her actions, not their assumptions. As she prepared to leave, Principal Green added, this time with a slightly gentler tone, "You may not realize it, but today, you did more than just defend yourself. You taught this whole school a lesson many adults forget. Truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand firm." Donna didn't respond, but the words stirred something deep inside her. As she stepped out of the office, the golden light still streamed down the hallway. And for the first time since arriving at Brookhaven, Donna felt that she was no longer walking alone. The next morning, when Donna Jones entered the classroom as usual and took her familiar seat by the window in the back row, a spot where she could always maintain a distance from every wandering gaze, there was a small but sharp change in the air that she couldn't ignore. A dark silhouette swept past the door. Black high-top boots struck the tiled floor like the tolling of a sentence. Audrey Carson stepped in. No introduction needed. No name tag required. She didn't look like any other student. Shiny black leather jacket, oversized hoop earrings, high-tied ponytail, and a stare that seemed to have already picked its target long before she set foot in Brookhaven's hallways. Audrey didn't glance at the teacher, nor did she care about the curious murmurs erupting across the rows of desks. She walked straight ahead, her eyes slicing through the newly calmed classroom air left behind after the Paul Langston incident. When she reached the back row, she didn't hesitate, didn't ask. She simply sat in the empty seat right behind Donna, close enough to hear every steady breath of the girl in front. Throughout the entire class, Donna didn't turn around, but she could feel Audrey's gaze, sharp and unyielding, clinging to the back of her neck like a wordless warning. By the final period of the day, as the room gradually emptied, Donna stayed behind to finish her math assignment. It was then that a low, deliberate voice stirred behind her. "You embarrassed my family," Audrey whispered, not loud, but each word landing with the weight of stone. "Paul's my blood. You think you're tough, but I'm here to let you know. This isn't over." Donna didn't answer. She closed her notebook and stood up, but didn't look back. Not because she was afraid, but because she understood. The most powerful response isn't found in words, but in refusing to be shaken by those who want to see you crumble. Outside the classroom, Donna passed Audrey's new circle. 2 girls with bleached blonde hair, dressed in black with high heels, and eyes that mimicked Audrey's, but lacked the true chill beneath. One of them muttered as Donna walked by, "Who does she think she is?" Donna walked on, without a flinch. But inside she knew. This was no longer about Paul Langston. This was something longer, more calculated. And Audrey didn't use fists. She used social pressure, isolation, mocking stares, and whispered rumors to squeeze someone until they disappeared. The next day, the whispers began. That Donna had staged it all. That the video had been edited to protect her. That she was just a pity case from the South Side, admitted to the school through a minority assistance program, not merit. The hallway whispers, the averted glances, the unanswered greetings. They all formed a slow, creeping fog around Donna. But she still arrived to class on time, turned in every assignment, and never missed a single period. She remembered her father's words clearly. When they can't break you with force, they'll try to crush you with silence. Never let that work. Donna still sat in her usual seat, where the morning light angled across her face through the window. But now, the presence behind her wasn't just a shadow. It was a storm waiting to break. And in that moment, Donna realized she wasn't just facing a bully like Paul anymore. She was about to face something far more dangerous. A small but vicious system of isolation, envy, and the fear called being different. Unlike Paul, impulsive and crude, Audrey Carson was the kind of enemy who didn't need to shout to inflict damage. All she needed was a phone, a basic editing app, and a perfect plan. 3 days after their initial confrontation, a video suddenly appeared on TikTok titled, "Southside Girl Attacks Classmate. This is who the school's celebrating." In the video, Donna was edited to look like the one who started the violence. The moment Paul Langston raised his hand had been completely erased. Viewers saw only a strong black girl slamming a white student to the floor, and that alone was enough to set the internet ablaze. Within 6 hours, the video surpassed 58,000 views, nearly 7,000 shares on Instagram, and over 900 comments. Many were viciously harsh. She should be expelled. Another troublemaker from Southside. People like her poison the school environment. Donna said nothing. She didn't argue. She didn't post. But her chest felt like it was being crushed under invisible stone with every breath. The whispers in the hallway. "That's the girl from the clip. Heard she learned martial arts just to hurt people. They scammed the school to get her in," began to ripple through classrooms, libraries, even the lunchroom. What made everything worse was the silence. Silence from classmates who had once clapped for her. Silence from teachers. Silence even from those who had defended her just days before. No one knew for sure if the video was fake, but no one dared to speak up. They were afraid of being labeled supporters of violence. Donna kept arriving to school on time. But when she walked into class, she could feel the shift. No one looked her way. No one smiled. They didn't despise her. They avoided her. Like a blot of ink no one wanted to smudge onto themselves. That evening, Donna sat in her room, playing the video over and over again. Each time brought a wave of rage and helplessness, but she didn't cry. Instead, she remembered her father's words. Justice doesn't come from shouting. It comes from evidence and from resolve. The next morning, Donna went to the principal's office. No appointment, no teacher escort. She stood tall and knocked 3 times. When Principal Green opened the door, he looked slightly surprised to see the small girl with a gaze firm as steel. "I need to speak with you," she said, "about the video going around." Mr. Green sighed and gestured for her to sit. "We're reviewing." "No," Donna interrupted politely. "I'm not here to ask for explanations. I'm here to request a public assembly, recorded, with witnesses. I'm going to prove the video is fake, but I need your permission." The principal looked at Donna as if he were truly seeing her for the first time. He didn't answer right away, but within minutes he was dialing the internal communications office. "We're organizing a full school assembly for Monday morning," he said. I want students, teachers, and parents present." Donna nodded. She didn't smile. She didn't feel relief. Because she knew that reclaiming the truth wouldn't just be a fight against one video. It would be a battle against a prejudice fed for decades. That afternoon, she walked through the hallway as usual. Audrey was still posted near the girls' restroom, leaning against the wall with her phone in hand. When she saw Donna, her lips curled into a smirk. "Smell that internet fame? Sweet, isn't it?" Donna didn't flinch. She simply replied with one sentence, not loud, not hateful, but each word like a hammer hitting iron. "Tomorrow, I won't need the internet to tell the truth. I'll use the light." And she walked away, leaving Audrey behind, her eyes flickering just slightly. For the first time, not fully in control. That morning, all of Brookhaven felt draped in a different air. No longer just another school day marked by bells and hurried footsteps. Over 600 students, nearly 50 teachers, the parent council, and even a few members of the local school board were invited to the central auditorium. Outside, the internal media team had set up cameras at 3 key angles. Audio was carefully tested, and at the center of the stage stood a nearly 120-inch LED screen. Donna sat in the front row, surrounded by a forest of eyes. People looked at her, not with the curiosity that met her on the first day of math class, but with expectation, as if the entire auditorium were holding its breath for something right to be affirmed. Principal Green stepped onto the stage. He wasn't wearing a suit, but a white shirt and dark blue tie. Simple, yet unmistakably formal. "We are here," he began, "not to punish, but to clarify. Because sometimes, in an age where anyone can edit the truth with a few taps, the greatest courage lies in replaying the original." He signaled. The lights in the auditorium dimmed. The screen lit up. The original video, from the classroom security camera, began to play. No background music, no effects, just raw footage. Paul Langston standing up, shouting, storming toward Donna. She remained seated. The teacher called his name. Paul ignored her. He kicked Donna's desk, he grabbed her wrist, and finally he swung his fist. Everyone could clearly see Donna only reacted after being attacked. Her takedown was swift, decisive, but devoid of rage, only self-defense. When the video ended, the auditorium was completely silent for 2 seconds. Then applause erupted, one clap, then another, and then an explosion. The entire room was engulfed in a standing ovation that lasted nearly 90 seconds. A few female students were in tears. Some stood with hands over their hearts, quietly exhaling as if they could finally breathe after days suffocating under lies. Donna stayed seated, silent. She didn't smile, didn't cry, but her eyes glowed, not because she had been vindicated, but because, for the first time, the truth hadn't been buried. On the left side of the auditorium, Audrey Carson sat still. Her smugness was gone. No sharp eyes, no smirking lips, only 2 hands clasped tightly in her lap and shoulders curled inward, as if trying to hide from her own reflection. Principal Green returned to the podium. He slowly swept his gaze across the rows, then spoke with clarity. "Justice does not come from silence. It does not come from rumors or edited clips. It can only exist when we allow the truth to speak." He turned to Donna, giving her a respectful nod. "Thank you for not backing down." The entire auditorium stood. No one told them to. Students who once stayed quiet in the face of a fake video now clapped with both hands. Teachers who had hesitated now nodded to Donna with unspoken apologies. And in that moment, sunlight streamed through the tall windows and settled across Donna's back like an invisible cloak, not of a victor, but of someone who had endured and still held on to her dignity. After the assembly, as Donna stepped into the hallway, something strange happened. No one pointed. No one whispered. They just nodded. A few smiled, genuinely. A white boy pressed a small note into her hand. My sister went through the same thing. Thank you for standing up. Donna simply nodded. She knew she wasn't loved. Not yet. But now she was seen as someone who deserved to be here. Justice isn't always a verdict. Sometimes it's a moment, when light touches truth, and everyone sees it for what it is. As the auditorium doors closed behind the school-wide assembly, Donna walked slowly down the east hallway, the familiar path back to the math classroom, where everything had begun. The footsteps of students were scattered. Conversations had quieted after the thunderous applause. But as Donna turned the corner between Block A and Block B, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Audrey Carson was already waiting. Beside her stood two other girls, Kayla and Trish, both dressed in black, hair tied high, their boots tapping against the tile floor like a dark drumbeat, keeping time for some ominous play. The flickering fluorescent lights reflected off their oversized hoop earrings, and Audrey's eyes were cold, like a freshly sharpened blade. You think you're clever, don't you? Audrey tilted her head, her voice laced with bitterness, her lips curling into a smile that carried no joy. Donna stopped. She didn't turn away. She didn't step back. Her hand still held her books, her gaze steady, not aggressive, just sharply alert. It's over, Donna replied softly, but each word was clear. I didn't come here to win. I came here to learn. Audrey scoffed and stepped closer until she was just centimeters from Donna's face. Learn? She hissed. Here's your first lesson. Don't ever disgrace my family in front of the whole school. The air in the hallway thickened. A few students in the distance began to pause, noticing the tension. One boy took out his phone and turned on the camera. Donna still didn't move. Audrey raised her hand, not clenched like Paul's had been, but wide open, ready to slap. But before the blow could land, that hand was caught midair. Stop! A deep voice rang out from behind. Officer Lane, the school resource officer, stepped in, his hand gripping Audrey's suspended wrist. She started it! Audrey shouted, struggling to pull away. No, Officer Lane said, his tone calm and firm, eyes locked on hers. We've reviewed the hallway footage. Everything was recorded, including the fake video. You're being suspended for harassment, threats, and falsifying evidence. The hallway fell silent. In that moment, Audrey, who once walked these corridors like she owned them, now stood frozen, arms limp at her sides, her face pale. Kayla and Trish lowered their heads, slowly backing away. A ninth-grade girl standing near the lockers whispered just loud enough for others to hear. Real justice finally came. Audrey was escorted from the hall. No supporters, no one on her side. Each step she took echoed like the final bell, tolling the end of an era of fear. Donna exhaled, lightly, like pressing the last key in a long, restrained melody. But she didn't walk away just yet. She turned to the students still watching, their eyes cautious. And then she nodded. A brown-skinned boy from her chemistry class, who had never dared speak to her before, stepped forward. Thank you. You didn't just stand up for yourself. Donna smiled. She didn't need applause. She didn't need titles. She needed just one thing: to be herself. Not a problem, not a target. And now, for the first time since arriving at Brookhaven, she felt like that might actually be possible. Far down the hall, Principal Green stood beside Officer Lane. Both watched Donna from a distance, then nodded, like men who had just witnessed something rare. Justice not born from a uniform, but from unwavering courage. That day, Donna didn't write anything in her journal. She simply taped a note to her bookshelf with 3 handwritten words. Still here. Stronger. Friday morning. The early sunlight streamed through the dusty glass panels of the hallway in Building C. Donna Jones walked slowly to her locker, just like every other day, quietly and calmly. But this time, something was different. On the gray-painted metal door, a small white note was taped. No name, no fancy decoration. Just a few lines handwritten in black ink, slanted slightly. "Thank you for standing up for all of us." Signed, half the class. Donna stood there for a long moment, not touching the note, just reading it and smiling, her first real smile all week. Not because of any victory over bullies, but because she realized she was no longer alone. Her every step that morning felt lighter. When she pushed open the door to the math classroom, the room where the first storm had erupted, silence greeted her. But it was no longer a silence of avoidance. There were no more scrutinizing eyes, no more sideways glances. Instead came quiet nods, small, brief, but full of meaning, from people who had never spoken a word to her before. Owen, Paul Langston's former best friend, even took out his earbuds as she entered, stepping aside to let her pass. Ms. Porter, in the middle of writing on the board, paused when she saw Donna and nodded, not like a teacher, but like an adult who had finally understood what truly mattered. Donna took her usual seat, the last desk by the window, where the morning light fell across her hair like a faint halo. She opened her notebook and flipped back to the unfinished page from the previous lesson. Fractions, graphs, equations. No one said anything, but everyone knew. At that desk sat a black girl who had stood firm in the middle of a storm of prejudice. Not with arguments, not with fists, but with strength, with intellect, and with unshakable belief in truth. A week ago, Donna had been the girl from Southside, met with discrimination. But today, she was something greater than herself, a symbol of a new generation willing to face injustice, ask hard questions, and speak out. In class, no one mentioned Paul's name anymore. Audrey had been suspended, but there were no mocking laughs, no gloating, only a necessary silence to close a painful chapter. Sometimes, endings don't need to be loud. That afternoon, Donna passed by the library and saw a group of students eagerly discussing a homework assignment. A blonde girl waved her over. "Donna, can you help us with geometry?" Not because she was the strong one, but because she was part of the group, as she should have been all along. In the hallway, a new poster had just gone up. Diversity and Equity Week starts Monday. Donna didn't know who initiated it, but she saw her name listed as a nominee to speak at the opening ceremony. She smiled, not because of the stage lights, but because she now knew her voice, once considered invisible, had become a guiding sound. Silence, when paired with respect, can be the loudest echo of all. And so, in a school once filled with judgmental stares, a girl named Donna Jones had rewritten the definition of courage, not with rebellion, but with resolve, not with hatred, but with dignity. That night, in her journal, she wrote just one line. Justice doesn't have to shout, it only needs to be seen.